The day my daughter-in-law told me I wasn't needed anymore, I stood in her kitchen, clutching a knitted blanket, and smiled through the ache in my chest. It was a warm summer evening in our small Ohio town, the kind where fireflies dance and the air smells like fresh-cut grass. Little Sophie, my granddaughter, was giggling on the floor, stacking her blocks. I was there to help, like always, chopping vegetables for their dinner. Then Lisa walked in, her face tight, her voice low. "Margaret, we need space," she said. "You're here too much." My son, Ryan, stood behind her, silent, his eyes on the floor. I nodded, said I understood, and left, the blanket still in my hands. The rain started as I drove home, each drop on the windshield feeling like a tear I couldn't shed. That moment broke something in me, but it also started a journey to find my way back, to my family, and to myself. My name's Margaret, and I'm 62 now. I've lived in this town my whole life, in a little house with a big garden and creaky wooden floors. I married my high school sweetheart, Tom, when we were barely 20. He was a mechanic with hands that could fix anything and a laugh that filled the room. We had Ryan 2 years later, our only child. He was a bright boy, with curly brown hair and eyes that sparkled when he smiled. We raised him with love, teaching him to be kind, to work hard, to always put family first. Those years were simple but full. Picnics by the lake, bedtime stories, cheering at his baseball games. Ryan was my heart, my reason to keep going after Tom passed away from a heart attack 10 years ago. Ryan was 22 then, just starting his job as an engineer in the city. "Mom, we'll get through this," he'd say, hugging me tight. He'd come home on weekends, fix the porch swing, or just sit with me over coffee. We were a team, holding each other up through the grief. When Ryan met Lisa, I was thrilled. She was 25, a nurse at the hospital, with a warm smile and a gentle way about her. They met when Ryan took me for a checkup, and I saw the spark between them right away. "She's special, Mom," he told me, his face lit up. They dated for 2 years, and I helped plan their wedding, picking out roses, tasting cakes, folding napkins for the reception. The day they married, under a clear spring sky, I stood in the front row, tears in my eyes, watching my boy promise forever to Lisa. She hugged me after, saying, "Thank you for raising such a good man." I felt like our family was growing, like I'd gained a daughter. A year later, Sophie was born, with Ryan's curls and Lisa's bright eyes. Holding her in the hospital, I felt the joy I hadn't known since Ryan was a baby. "My little sunshine," I whispered, rocking her gently. Life felt full again, like the pieces were coming together. Those first months with Sophie were magic. Ryan and Lisa lived in a small apartment in the city, an hour's drive from my house. I'd visit every week, bringing homemade pies or tiny clothes for Sophie. Lisa would call me for advice, how to soothe a teething baby, or the best way to make mashed peas. "Margaret, you're a godsend," she'd say, laughing. Ryan would hug me and say, "Mom, we couldn't do this without you." I'd spend hours with Sophie, singing lullabies, reading picture books, watching her tiny hands reach for mine. The house came alive during those visits, filled with her giggles and the smell of baby powder. Family dinners were my favorite. Ryan carving the roast, Lisa passing the potatoes, me bouncing Sophie on my knee. It felt like the old days when Tom was alive and our little family was whole. I'd drive home under the stars, my heart warm, thinking this was what life was about. But slowly, things started to shift. It was small at first, so small I barely noticed. Lisa would say, "Margaret, you don't need to come every weekend. We're figuring things out." Her tone was kind, but it stung a little. I'd smile and say, "Of course, you need your time." Ryan would nod, "Mom, we're good. Get some rest." I started spacing out my visits, calling instead of showing up. But the calls got shorter. Ryan, who used to talk for an hour about work or Sophie's new tricks, now said, "We're busy, Mom. I'll call you later." Later didn't come. I'd send texts, pictures of my garden, or a recipe for Lisa. But the replies were short. "Looks nice. Thanks." I told myself it was normal, that new parents need space. But the quiet grew, like a shadow creeping across my heart. One afternoon, I showed up with a peach cobbler, hoping to surprise them. Lisa opened the door, Sophie on her hip, her smile thin. "Margaret, we weren't expecting you," she said. Ryan was in the living room, scrolling on his phone. "Mom, we're about to head out," he said, barely looking up. I held out the cobbler, feeling foolish. "I just wanted to drop this off," I said. Lisa took it, her voice polite but cool. "Thanks, but call next time, okay? We've got a routine." I nodded, my throat tight, and left, the blanket still in my hands. The rain started as I drove home, each drop on the windshield feeling like a tear I couldn't shed. That moment broke something in me, but it also started a journey to find my way back, to my family, and to myself. The comments kept coming, like pebbles piling up. At a family barbecue, Lisa said, "Margaret, you don't need to bring food every time. We've got it covered." Ryan chimed in, "Yeah, Mom, Lisa's a great cook." I smiled, but it hurt, like I was being pushed out of my own family. Another time, I offered to watch Sophie so they could have a date night. "We're fine," Lisa said. "We like keeping her close." Ryan hugged me goodbye, but his eyes were elsewhere, on his phone or the door. The invitation stopped too. No more Sunday dinners at my house, no more holiday plans. "We'll come soon," they said, but soon never came. My texts went unanswered for days. "Busy with Sophie," they'd reply eventually. I felt like a guest in their lives, not a mother. I tried talking to Ryan one evening when he called, which was rare now. "I miss you all," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Is everything okay?" "We're fine, Mom," he said, his voice rushed. "Just swamped. Sophie's a handful. I could help more. I'd love to spend time with her. Lisa's got it under control. She's amazing with Sophie. We'll catch up soon." I hung up, the silence in the house louder than ever. My old dog Max lay at my feet, his breathing slow. The house felt too big, too empty. I'd walk through it, touching Ryan's old baseball glove on the shelf, looking at photos of us at the zoo, him grinning with ice cream on his face. Those memories felt like ghosts now, haunting every corner. Friends at church noticed I was quieter. "How's Ryan?" they'd ask over coffee. "Good," I'd say, smiling. "Busy with the baby." But inside, I was fading, like an old quilt left in the sun too long. One day, I got a call from Lisa. "Margaret, we appreciate the gifts you send Sophie," she said, her voice polite but distant. "But maybe hold off for a while. We're trying to keep things simple." I nodded, as if she could see me through the phone. "I just want to be part of her life," I said softly. "We know," she said, "but we need to do this our way." The words stung, like a door closing in my face. I stopped sending gifts after that, afraid of being too much again. The loneliness settled in deeper, a quiet weight I carried everywhere. I'd sit in the garden, pulling weeds, watching the flowers bloom and wilt. Max would lie beside me, his tail barely wagging now. The house felt like a museum of what used to be. Ryan's old bedroom, the kitchen where we baked cookies, the porch where we'd talk about his dreams. I wondered where I'd gone wrong, if my love had somehow become a burden. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. I'd spent weeks knitting a blanket for Sophie, soft blue yarn with little stars stitched into it. I drove to their apartment, hoping to surprise them, to feel like part of their world again. The rain was steady, pattering on my umbrella as I knocked on the door. I heard footsteps, then Lisa opened it, Sophie in her arms, her face surprised, then guarded. "Margaret," she said, "we weren't expecting you." "I made this for Sophie," I said, holding out the blanket, my hands trembling slightly. "Can I come in for a minute?" Lisa glanced back at Ryan, who was on the couch with his laptop. "This isn't a good time," she said, her voice firm. Ryan stood up, looking uncomfortable. Mom, Sophie's been fussy. We're trying to settle her. I just wanted to see her, I said, my voice breaking a little. I miss you all. Lisa stepped forward, her eyes steady. Margaret, we need space. You're here too much, calling too much. It's overwhelming. We're not kids anymore. We don't need you like that. Please, go home. The words hit like a cold wind, stealing my breath. Not needed? I whispered, the blanket heavy in my hands. Ryan looked away, his silence louder than words. Mom, Lisa's right. We need to figure this out ourselves for a while. I nodded, tears burning my eyes. Okay, I said. I understand. I turned and walked back to my car, the rain soaking my coat, hiding the tears streaming down my face. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, the blanket on the passenger seat, the wipers swiping back and forth. Had I been too much? Had my love pushed them away? The drive home was a blur, the road slick with rain, my mind filled with memories. Ryan as a boy, holding my hand, needing me. Now it felt like he didn't need me at all, like I was a stranger in my own family. That night, I sat in the kitchen, the blanket in my lap, and cried. The house was so quiet, the only sound the rain tapping on the windows, like fingers trying to comfort me. Max lay at my feet, his breathing slow and heavy. I thought about calling Ryan, begging him to explain, but what could I say? Please don't shut me out? It felt like admitting defeat. Instead, I went to bed, the emptiness wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. The loneliness was a deep ache, a hole in my heart that grew with every silent day. The months that followed were the hardest I'd ever known. Ryan stopped calling altogether. My texts went unanswered, or I'd get a short, "Busy, Mom," days later. I sent a card for Sophie's first birthday with a little note saying how much I loved her. The reply was a text from Lisa. Thanks. Nothing more. I drove by their apartment once, late at night, seeing the lights on, hearing laughter through the window. I turned away, feeling like an outsider, like I didn't belong in their world anymore. The house became a prison of memories. I'd walk past Ryan's old room, see his baseball trophies, his old books, the kitchen where we'd laugh over burnt cookies, the living room where we'd watch movies, him curled up beside me. Every corner held a piece of the past, and it hurt to look at them. Max got sick that winter, his old age catching up with him. He stopped eating, his eyes cloudy and tired. The vet said it was time to let him go. I held him as he slipped away, my tears falling on his soft fur. "You're my good boy," I whispered. "Thank you for staying with me." I buried him in the backyard, under the oak tree where he loved to lie. The dirt was cold, my hands shaking as I dug. I called Ryan that night, my voice breaking. "Max is gone," I said when he answered. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, his voice flat. "We're swamped with Sophie. Take care." No offer to come over, no comfort. Just those words, like I was a stranger calling with bad news. I hung up, the silence louder than ever. I sat on the porch, the cold air biting my face, and felt the loneliness swallow me whole. I stopped reaching out after that. No more texts, no more gifts. I couldn't bear the rejection anymore. The days blended together, gardening, painting, walking alone in the park. My paintings changed, the colors darker, the strokes heavier, like my heart was spilling onto the canvas. Friends at church noticed I was quieter. "How's Ryan and the family?" they'd ask over tea. "They're good," I'd say, forcing a smile. But the truth was I was disappearing from their lives, like a shadow fading in the light. I'd look at Sophie's photo on the fridge, her smile so much like Ryan's, and feel a pang of loss. I was her grandmother, but I barely knew her. One day, a package arrived, a small photo of Sophie in a pink dress with a note from Lisa. She's growing fast. Thought you'd like this." No invitation, no warmth. I pinned the photo next to the others, my fingers lingering on her face. Every day I'd look at it, wondering what she was like now, what story she'd tell if I could hold her. The loneliness became a quiet companion, sitting with me at the kitchen table, sleeping beside me at night. I wondered if this was my life now, alone, forgotten, a piece of the past they'd outgrown. But in that quiet, something inside me began to shift. I realized I couldn't keep waiting for them to come back to me. I had to find my own way. I started going to the community center, teaching art to kids from the neighborhood. Their laughter, their messy drawings brought a spark back to my days. I joined a book club, meeting women my age who shared their own stories of family and loss. "You're stronger than you know," one of them told me over coffee. "You raised a good man. That's enough." I took up painting again, not the dark ones, but brighter ones. Flowers, sunsets, children playing. I even went on a trip to the lake, just me, sitting by the water, remembering Tom's laugh, Ryan's childhood, and the woman I still was. "I'm okay," I whispered to the waves. "I can do this." One evening, as I sat in the garden watching the fireflies, a knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find Ryan standing there, Sophie in his arms, Lisa beside him with a basket of homemade muffins. "Mom," said Ryan, his voice soft, his eyes full of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Regret. "Can we come in?" "Of course," I said, my heart racing, stepping aside. We sat in the living room, Sophie toddling over to me with a big grin. "Grandma," she said, climbing into my lap, her little arms wrapping around my neck. I hugged her close, tears stinging my eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "We got so caught up in our own world, we forgot about yours. I miss you." Lisa nodded, her eyes wet. "I was overwhelmed with Sophie, with everything. I pushed you away and that was wrong. I'm so sorry, Margaret." I looked at them, my son and his wife, and saw the love still there, buried under the mistakes. "There's nothing to forgive," I said, my voice steady. "Come here." We hugged, the room filled with warmth again, like sunlight breaking through the clouds. We talked for hours, sharing stories, laughing over old photos I pulled from the album. Sophie fell asleep in my arms, her breathing slow and heavy. I told them about Max, about the art classes, about the quiet days. They listened, really listened, for the first time in a long time. "We want you back in our lives," Ryan said. "Sophie needs her grandma." Lisa smiled. "We're planning a picnic next week. Will you come?" "I'd love that," I said, my heart full. It wasn't perfect. The hurt lingered like a scar that aches in the cold. But it was a start, a step toward healing. We made plans to see each other more often, to call, to be a family again. As they left, Sophie waved, her little hand flapping like a butterfly. I stood on the porch, watching their car disappear, the fireflies glowing around me. Looking back, those lonely months taught me something I'll never forget. Family bonds can stretch and strain, but they don't have to break. Sometimes the space we give each other lets us find our way back. And in the quiet, I found my own strength, my own light. Life isn't always easy, but it's full of second chances if we open the door to them. For that, I'm grateful.